I've finally met someone who matters. My name is Victor Blackwood. I'm 45 and a commercial architect based in Charleston, South Carolina. Tonight, I sit in my study, walls lined with framed renderings of restored warehouses and renovated townhouses, as I stare numbly at an email that arrived from my wife of 12 years. She claimed she was on a mindfulness retreat at the Blue Ridge Wellness Center in Asheville, North Carolina. The timestamp reads 11:22 p.m. Eastern Time, and the body of that email, those 4 devastating words, glowed like a neon betrayal. I've transferred your inheritance into my personal account. No apology. No, I'm sorry. Just a cold confession. Below the text was a single attachment, a blurry photograph. I hesitated before clicking it open. In the dim light of my laptop screen, I made out 2 figures on a slate gray balcony. Eliza, wind-blown hair cascading in golden waves past her shoulders, and a bearded stranger raising crystal coupe glasses to the fading lavender sky. They clinked under the indigo horizon, wine sloshing over the rims. Her smile in that blurry shot was different, brighter, triumphant, not the affectionate warmth I'd known in years, but the kind of thrill I'd never seen in her. I snapped the laptop closed with a sharp click, as though slamming a door on the illusion of us. My heart pounded against my ribs, but my breathing remained eerily measured. I rose from my swivel chair and crossed the carpeted floor into the kitchen, every step echoing in the hush of our grand old home. I filled a tall glass with water and stood at the island, gazing out the French doors into our backyard. The twilight lingered on the garden path traced with bluestone pavers, stones I had laid myself during a humid June. While Eliza planted hydrangeas in the long border, she'd wanted a cottage garden feel, and I'd indulged her whim. We'd spent that entire summer side by side, sweat on our brows, laughter in the air. Now the flowers bloomed ghostly in the half-light, a silent testament to work we'd built together, work she apparently never intended to return to. The inheritance wasn't small, $612. It came from my Aunt Margaret, the woman who rescued me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 14. She balanced her shifts as an ICU nurse with moonlighting as a grants administrator. Just so I could attend college, she'd left me everything with a single line on her will. Use this to leave something enduring. I lifted my phone, expecting at least a text, wondering if I'd seen her message. But there was only silence, no calls, no anxieties, no attempt at reconciliation, as though she'd already launched the next chapter of her new life and had no interest in the one she'd abandoned. I thought back to the past months, the subtle tremors that shook the foundation of our marriage. At first, Eliza's retreats had been short, 2-day weekend sessions in Asheville. Then they stretched to 4 days. Then full weeks. She'd cited research for the brand, each time, her line of artisan essential oils and botanical elixirs. But after tonight, I realized how perfectly that excuse had concealed something else. Her phone became a talisman she placed face down at dinners. Passwords changed without explanation. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. 3 months ago, she'd asked pointed questions about Aunt Margaret's gift, where it was, how it was invested, whether we should diversify. I answered carefully, promised to think it over. I didn't see the crack that widened into a chasm. On one humid Tuesday, our neighbor, Clara Benson, dropped by with fresh strawberry jam. She mentioned offhand that she'd seen someone pull Eliza into her car outside the studio last week. He looked like a traveling consultant. Clara had said, he drove a rented Jeep. Plates from Kentucky. Funny, I thought you were out of town that day. I'd been in Boston for a symposium, 5 days of seminars and site visits, so I hadn't asked follow-up questions. Instead, I tucked the tidbit away in my mind. Then came the banking alerts. Late-night security locks on accounts that had never had extra authentication. Multiple attempts to access your trust. The email from my financial advisor, Samuel Green, had read, he'd called the next morning, someone tried logging in with your social security digits. He said, voice low over the phone, they failed the security questions, so the system blocked them. When I asked which accounts, Samuel sighed, the inheritance trust. I can send you the logs. I thanked him and hung up. I returned to the garden view, water glass in hand, and let the weight of it all settle. That night, I told myself I'd look into consolidating our finances, simplify the passwords. Eliza had suggested at dinner. I'd feigned agreement, but in truth, I'd already made up my mind to protect what Aunt Margaret intended me to build. The next morning, I drove to Savannah, my aunt's longtime attorney's office. Olivia Bennet had handled Margaret's estate for decades. She greeted me in her oak-paneled study, sunlight slanting through Venetian blinds, motes dancing in the haze. I laid out my concerns without emotion, just facts. I think someone's been planning to steal those funds, I said. Olivia's expression tightened into a mask of professional concern. Margaret insisted on an irrevocable trust for just this reason. She replied, "It can't be moved without two-party authorization. Anyone who tries will leave a clear trail." I nodded, relief mingling with anger. "I want that trail published," I told her. "Alerts, logs, IP addresses, everything." She tapped her stylus. "We'll set up monitoring with the trust company immediately." Back at home, I watched Eliza pack for her retreat, this time. Her last one, she said with a distant smile. "I might extend," she'd added, tossing a sleek weekender bag into the trunk of her SUV. I kissed her farewell on the cheek, softly, as though nothing was amiss, and she drove away into the early dawn. Once she'd gone, I opened my laptop, but not to snoop through her emails. I went straight to our shared cloud drive, the place where all our household files lived. There, in a folder labeled Home Renovation Concepts, I found what she'd forgotten to move: PDF statements, screenshots of trust account balances, notes on wire transfer protocols, even a crude whiteboard photo listing numbers and percentages. At the bottom, scrawled in Eliza's handwriting, inheritance amount minus 20%, cover transfer fees. The betrayal crystallized. She'd been planning this for months, gathering evidence, mapping out each step, yet I felt no fury, only a profound calm. For the first time in years, I saw our marriage for what it truly was: a partnership she treated like a transaction, ready to be terminated when a more profitable opportunity appeared. That night, I slept in the guest suite, mattress firm and unadorned. When I closed my eyes, I didn't see Eliza's face. I saw Aunt Margaret's reassuring smile and the blueprint of the life she wanted me to build, one rooted in integrity, resilience, and purpose. By the time Eliza's email announcing her deception arrived 5 days later, I was already several moves ahead. No emotional pleas, no frantic calls. Instead, I had forwarded the email to Samuel Green and Olivia Bennet with a simple message: "Please log this under document ID 4721. Proceed with legal monitoring." Within hours, Samuel confirmed 3 more unauthorized access attempts, each recorded with timestamps and IP details. Olivia arranged a conference call with Lucas Palmer, a divorce attorney she recommended, and together we reviewed the strategy. I drafted a terse response to Eliza's email, 6 words that reflected all the control I'd regained. "Thank you for informing me." Then I closed my laptop and poured a glass of bourbon, neat. At room temperature. Outside, the night was still. The garden lay silent beneath the moon, hydrangeas bobbing gently in the breeze. Tomorrow, I would begin the next stage of this journey. But tonight, I embraced a rare gift: clarity. Home network. We have precise timestamps and unique device IDs. I acknowledged her, ended the call, and wandered through the hushed rooms of our house, which now felt more like a forensic exhibit than a haven. Every piece of furniture, every photograph on the mantel, seemed to catalog evidence of a life unraveling. In the kitchen, I reached for the bottle of 20-year-old single malt scotch that Eliza and I had vowed to save for our 15th anniversary. The amber liquid caught the overhead light as I poured 2 fingers into a heavy crystal glass. Eliza must have believed she had orchestrated an inescapable trap. She didn't realize that by trying to ensnare me, she'd stepped right into one of her own making. The next morning, my phone rang before dawn. It was David Sinclair. His voice was carefully measured, tinged with the professional civility one reserves for bad news. "Mr. Blackwood," he began, "I'm representing your wife in the separation proceedings. She indicates that you are open to a straightforward settlement." "Is that how she put it?" I asked, neutral. He hesitated, as though fishing for softened words. "She said you understand the situation." "Which situation, exactly?" I pressed. Another pause. The division of assets, including the recent inheritance funds. She's provided statements. Recent ones? I wrote in my mind. From roughly 3 months ago? Yes, he replied after a moment. And she says transfer confirmations are forthcoming from the bank. Has she explained the nature of the inheritance itself? The irrevocable trust set up by your late aunt? I asked. Silence crackled over the line. Mr. Sinclair, I suggest you verify every detail before proceeding. I said, calm. My attorney will forward the trust documents to your office today. I hung up without another word. By mid-morning, I was seated across from Cameron Reeves, the branch manager at Charleston Community Bank, the institution we'd trusted for years. Cameron had overseen our house refinance only 2 years prior and knew us personally. I laid out my request plainly. I need a full review of all recent activity on our joint accounts. He nodded gravely, fingers flying across the keyboard. After a moment, he turned his monitor toward me. There have been a series of withdrawals over the last 3 months. He said, they began modestly, $2 here, $3.500 there, but escalated significantly. 2 weeks ago, $47. I studied the screen. To which account? I asked. External, Cameron replied. Northern Pines Credit Union. Account in Eliza's name only. I frowned. When was it opened? 8 months ago, he answered. Address on file is an apartment in Mesa, Arizona. I requested printouts of every transaction from the past 6 months. While I waited, my phone buzzed. An urgent message from Lucas Palmer, my attorney. Emergency meeting requested. His tone felt sharp, concerned. By the time I handed Cameron's printouts back and thanked him, I already knew the unsettling truth. Eliza had systematically siphoned funds from our marital accounts to build a new life. Months in the making. That afternoon, I returned to Lucas's downtown office. His paralegal, Denise Carter, greeted me with a stack of documents. The Mesa lease, your account statements, trust logs, all compiled. She said. Lucas looked up, brows drawn. This confirms it, he murmured. Then his phone rang. David Sinclair. Lucas listened, expression darkening. When he hung up, he turned to me. Sinclair admits misrepresentation in his client's claims. Lucas reported. He wants to discuss revised terms. A heartbeat later, he added, she's already filed for divorce, citing financial misconduct. We had the evidence to prove it. A day later, Lucas delivered a formal withdrawal notification. David Sinclair would no longer represent Eliza. Enclosed was a letter to both Eliza and the court. Attached, a note from Lucas. First domino falls. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with 4 missed calls from Eliza, followed by a text. What did you do? I didn't reply. I sat at the kitchen island, nibbling on a turkey sandwich, when an email from Olivia Bennett appeared with the subject line, Trust Update. The attached report confirmed multiple unauthorized access attempts over 3 months, each logged with IP addresses, device IDs, and geolocations. The trust company had forwarded the matter to its in-house counsel for possible criminal referral. No action needed from you now, Olivia wrote, but be aware this pathway is open. I forwarded everything to Lucas. That evening at 9:03 p.m., another text from Eliza. We need to talk. I shot back. Through your new attorney. Her next message read, you're overreacting. My reply, look at the logs. A tearful pause of 17 minutes, then, what logs? I sent one question. Who is he? 20 minutes later, her response, this isn't about him. Name, Marcus Ellington. She confessed, but he's only a friend. I searched the name online. Marcus Ellington. Former equities trader turned yoga instructor at Mesa's Silver Sage studio. Left finance 3 years ago to pursue a more authentic life. The next morning, I paid a visit to Jordan Rice, our neighbor, the man who'd once mentioned dropping Eliza off at an out-of-town retreat. I showed him the blurry photo. He squinted. Yeah, that's him. Jordan confirmed. He was here 5 or 6 times when you were traveling. I asked if he would sign a sworn statement. He agreed instantly. By late afternoon, Lucas called with fresh news. Eliza had retained Harrison Cole, a litigator known for scorched earth divorce tactics. Cole had requested an emergency hearing Monday morning, just 3 days away. They're contesting the misconduct claim. Lucas said. He argues all transactions were mutually agreed. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Let's give them a dose of reality, I said. That evening, Lucas hand-delivered a dossier to Cole's office, trust access logs, bank statements, lease records for the Mesa apartment, Jordan's notarized affidavit, and screenshots from our shared cloud folder showing Eliza's detailed notes on how to access my accounts. By 5 p.m., Lucas reported Cole had requested a private settlement meeting. He's seen enough, Lucas said. They're offering a clean split. What she took, she keeps. You keep the rest, house, inheritance. I shook my head. Counteroffer. She returns half of the joint account funds and signs an NDA. No fraud pursuit. I want this done. Lucas raised an eyebrow. You could press harder. I want closure, not vengeance, I replied. On Monday morning, instead of arriving at the courthouse, Eliza and Harrison Cole were met by Lucas in the empty hall outside the courtroom. No judge, no press, no parade of spectators, just a silent exchange of documents in a quiet anteroom. Lucas slid the settlement across the table. Eliza transfers $89.137.50, half of $178.275, back to me within 24 hours. She relinquishes any claim to the inheritance or other assets. She signs a non-disclosure barring any discussion of our marriage or proceedings. I waive any and all fraud charges related to the attempted trust theft. Eliza signed with a shaky hand. I signed. Then I pushed a second envelope toward her. She looked up. What's this? The credentials to our home alarm. Cloud storage. Everything you might still need, I said quietly. Her eyes searched mine, seeking anger, vindication, maybe even tenderness. Finding none, she seemed more unmoored than triumphant. Harrison Cole guided her out. She clutched the envelopes but never turned back. 6 months later, I sold the house on Crepe Myrtle Lane. Too many ghosted memories lingered in its grand rooms. The new owners, a young couple with twin boys, adored the wraparound porch and the hydrangea border I'd once laid with Eliza. I moved into a downtown loft, within walking distance of Blackwood and Sons Architects. Fewer possessions, less ornament, more room for the life I would now build. Olivia Bennett helped me transform my aunt's inheritance into the Margaret Blackwood Foundation, offering annual scholarships to students who'd lost parents and dreamed of designing healing spaces. At the first ceremony, we awarded a $10 grant to 16-year-old Maya Thompson, whose essay on architecture as compassion moved the committee. I often think of Aunt Margaret, her steady resolve, her belief that what endures is built with equal measures of imagination and vigilance. One afternoon, as I collected the mail in my building's foyer, I found an unmarked envelope bearing no return address. Inside lay a check for exactly $89.137.50 and a brief note. The rest of what I owe. No signature needed. I tucked it into my pocket. That evening, I wandered down to the waterfront park where Eliza and I once planned a joint wellness center. She is founder, I as architect. That dream had died long before our marriage. I sat on a weathered bench, watching container ships glide along the Cooper River, the unsigned check warm in my jacket pocket. Tomorrow, I would deposit it into the foundation's account, another scholarship, another chance to leave something permanent behind. My phone buzzed. A text from Samuel Green. Foundation's first report is live. Congratulations. I smiled and replied, thank you. Onward. My phone buzzed just as I stepped into the lobby of my building. A text from Olivia Bennett, my aunt's longtime attorney turned friend, glowed brightly on the screen. Dinner still on for 7? I'm bringing that architect I mentioned. I paused beneath the chandelier's soft light. 12 hours earlier, I had been sent reams of discovery logs, settlement drafts, and final trust statements. By midnight, I'd deposited the unsigned check into the Margaret Blackwood Foundation account and watched Maya Thompson's scholarship application land in my inbox. Now here was Olivia, reaching out not as a lawyer, but as a friend who understood that healing sometimes needed time away from courtrooms and spreadsheets. I glanced at my watch. It was 6:15 p.m., just enough time to walk back up my street, change into something more than the tailored suit I'd lived in since breakfast, and head out to Charleston Social House. It was the place where Eliza and I used to celebrate our firm's first big commission. Back when our dreams were still shared. I texted her back. See you at 7. Looking forward to it. Then I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and headed toward the elevator. Moments later, I was in my loft. The evening sky painted in pastel streaks across the windows. I opened my closet, ran my fingers over the crisp shirts and charcoal trousers I'd purchased after Aunt Margaret's passing, when I'd sworn I'd build something that truly lasted. Tonight, those clothes would remind me of resolve, not regret. By 6:45, I was walking south down King Street, the sidewalk perfumed with jasmine spilling from wrought iron balconies. A warm breeze carried distant laughter from sidewalk tables. The city felt alive, its pulse synchronized with my own. Betrayal had tried to break me. Rebuilding would be my answer. At Charleston Social House, Olivia was already there, seated at a table for 3 near the back, where sconces cast gentle pools of light on the exposed brick walls. Next to her sat a woman I didn't yet know, a poised figure in a slate gray pencil skirt and a blouse of soft ivory silk. That's her, Olivia whispered as I approached. Meet Charlotte Green. She's the principal architect from Green & Partners in Savannah. I thought you two should meet. I extended my hand. Victor Blackwood. Charlotte shook my hand warmly. I've heard about your work in historic preservation. I'm honored. Her voice held a quiet confidence, one that reminded me of why I'd fallen in love with architecture in the first place, for the promise of creating structures that outlived their creators. In Charlotte's presence, I felt a spark of the old excitement, the thrill of possibility. Olivia waved to the waiter. Menus arrived, but none of us looked twice at the typefaces or layout. Instead, we dove right into conversation. Over heirloom tomato salad drizzled with balsamic pearls. Charlotte asked, Victor, what kind of foundation are you building now? I paused, searching for words. Until now, I'd spoken only in legalese, irrevocable trust, non-disclosure agreement, settlement, but Charlotte's question invited something else, a vision. I'm establishing a foundation, I said, for students whose lives have been upended, kids who've lost parents. Like I did, we're funding scholarships for those who want to design places that heal. I watched her eyes light up. Margaret Blackwood Foundation, she repeated, beautiful mission. At that moment, I felt the weight of the past lift slightly. Here was someone who saw beyond my recent divorce headlines and believed in the power of architecture to mend communities. We moved on to discussing Gothic revival windows in downtown warehouses and the paradox of retrofitting mid-century office blocks. Charlotte shared photos from a competition she'd entered, a community arts center in rural Georgia. Her passion was infectious, her insights crisp. I found myself sketching ideas on a napkin. Local brick patterns, sunken courtyards, light wells that invited morning sun into dark spaces. Across the table, Olivia watched us with a pleased smile. Halfway through a bottle of Pinot Noir, she toasted to new partnerships and to rebuilding stronger than before. I raised my glass to rebuilding. The conversation turned to our personal stories. Charlotte spoke of her grandfather, a stonemason who taught her to see structures as living entities. I told her about Aunt Margaret's insistence that buildings, like people, needed both vision and vigilance. Then came the question I hadn't expected. Victor, Charlotte said quietly, how are you doing? I paused, fork halfway to my mouth. The question was simple, but it carried the gravity of every sleepless night I'd endured since Eliza's betrayal. I set down my fork and looked at them both. I'm better, I answered. I feel like I've spent months rebuilding my professional life. But tonight, I'm rebuilding myself. Olivia reached over and squeezed my hand. You deserve more than just survival. Charlotte nodded. In architecture, we talk about form following function. Maybe your mind and heart need a new blueprint. We sat in companionable silence for a moment, the hum of the restaurant around us. Then Olivia leaned forward. Victor, I have an idea. We're organizing a panel at the Charleston Design Forum next month on restorative architecture. I thought you and Charlotte could co-present. My pulse quickened. The forum was one of the city's largest gatherings of designers, planners, and civic leaders. To speak there would be an honor, and a bold statement that I was moving forward. I'd be honored, I said. Charlotte smiled. Count me in. Dinner wound down, but none of us were in a hurry to leave. We lingered over dessert, Dark chocolate panna cotta with a sea salt caramel drizzle, talking late into the evening about site visits, grant applications, and the challenge of designing spaces that honored history while embracing sustainability. When the check arrived, Olivia insisted on covering it, a gesture that felt less like charity and more like solidarity. We rose together into the balmy night, Charleston's gas lanterns flickering along the sidewalks. As we stepped into the street, Charlotte tucked her portfolio under her arm. "Victor, I'd love to visit your office sometime, to see the studio. Meet your team." I grinned. "You're always welcome at Blackwood & Sons." Olivia winked. "See? Tomorrow you'll have 2 new collaborators, and maybe a fresh perspective on life." I inhaled deeply, the faint scent of saltwater riding the breeze from the nearby harbor. Betrayal had threatened to leave me hollow, but this evening reminded me that hope was still very much alive. I walked home slowly, past the hydrangea-lined path where Eliza and I once stood, dreaming up floor plans. Now, instead of pain, I felt anticipation. The porch light of my loft apartment guided me back. I paused on the threshold, hand on the door handle, and let out a quiet breath. Inside, the soft glow of my desk lamp illuminated the blank sheets of tracing paper and a set of drafting tools, my arsenal for future projects. I flicked on the light, set my keys on the console, and walked to the window overlooking the garden below. Moonlight bathed the stone pavers, and the hydrangeas gleamed ghostly white. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember the work we'd done here, the laughter, the dreams. Then I turned away. Tomorrow, I would meet with Charlotte at my office and begin sketching designs for the design forum presentation. The day after, I'd visit Maya Thompson's high school to talk about her scholarship. And soon, I'd finalize plans for a community center restoration that had sat on my desk for months. Tonight, though, I savored a single truth. Sometimes the strongest response to betrayal isn't revenge. It's rebuilding. I set my glass of water on the windowsill, then walked to my drafting table and picked up a pencil. On the first sheet of paper, I drew a simple arch, an invitation for light to pass through. Because in that arch, I saw not just a doorway, but a new beginning.